Hello and welcome to the video where today I am going to be taking a quick look at the Champions League draw that's been made today from a Barcelona perspective. So the draw was made, Barca were drawn into Group G alongside Juventus, Dynamo Kiev and Ferencvaros of Hungary. So ultimately it should be a group that Barcelona should be looking to get out of. Even with all the problems that there's been recently, like Juventus will obviously be a tough opponent. But realistically, Barcelona need to be looking at Dynamo Kiev and Ferencvaros as teams that they can beat. So I've just had a wee look at what the clubs have done this season. Got a wee bit of information about them, and we'll have a chat about that then. So starting off with the seeded team. Juventus obviously and is champions of Italy. So the big story that everyone's going to be talking about is going to be the Messi Ronaldo narrative. Obviously they went head to head all them years whenever Barcelona and Real Madrid, whenever Ronaldo was in Spain. So this will be the first time that they've went against each other since Ronaldo left Real Madrid. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Obviously they're both a bit older now, but still very much making the headlines in their respective clubs. Incidentally, it'll be obviously interesting as well to see that this year at the UEFA Awards that are held at the same time as the draw was the first time that they weren't on the list of the best three players. Obviously in the end, Robert Lewandowski took the award. But it'll be something I expect that might fire them up a bit. So it'll be interesting from that perspective. Another interesting story to come out of the draw from that is the fact that the club's done a bit of business together this summer. Pjanic moved to Barcelona, Miralem Pjanic, and Arthur went to Juventus. So they'll have an opportunity possibly to play against their old teams, depending obviously if selected. So just to have a wee look at Juventus business this summer. The main moves, obviously, they got Arthur. That was kind of done before the leagues all kind of got back underway and kicked off again. So yeah, Arthur come in from Barcelona. So Barca fans will know all about him. Another player that's been playing in La Liga that went is Alvaro Morata. Obviously former Real Madrid, former Atletico, and he's obviously former Juventus as well. He played there and actually scored against Barcelona in the 2015 Champions League final. So they'll get to renew rivalries with him. Another midfielder that come in alongside obviously Arthur come in midfield is Weston McKennie, Schalke. And another player who came in, he's always been a Juventus player obviously, but he's come back from loan. He had been at Parma and scored 10 goals and 9 assists, and that's Dejan Kulusevski, Swedish player, attacker. So I think he started both of Juventus' league games so far this season, and I know he definitely scored in the first game. So he'll probably be in about the squad. The players that they've lost, obviously they lost Pjanic, and Emre Can, who had been away at Dortmund, is now officially a Dortmund player completely. So he was another one that left. Another two then sort of kind of similar scenario to Barcelona. Juventus have been trying to move a few older players on and stuff, so they've got rid of Blaise Matuidi and Gonzalo Higuain, who have both gone to the MLS with David Beckham's new franchise out there. I think it's Inter Miami, I believe they're called. So yeah, they've both gone out there. So just another couple of wee bits and bobs then, just kind of their form so far. Obviously they were in the Champions League whenever it all kicked off again, and they actually went out before Barcelona did. I think they had lost 1-0 to Lyon before lockdown, before COVID hit, and then they beat Lyon, I think it was 2-1, but they went out on away goals, which ended their campaign for last season. And over the summer then Maurizio Sarri left the club, and they've brought in Andrea Pirlo as manager, which is obviously something interesting to see. Pirlo, another survivor, another player that played from that 2015 Champions League final. So far, he's had a 3-0 win against Sampdoria and a 2-2 draw against Roma domestically. The 2-2 draw against Roma is, they were down to 10, Juventus were down to 10 men in that game, so, to get the draw there was actually quite a good result. But yeah, Juventus under Pirlo, it'll be interesting to see how he does. Obviously, the real test for any Juventus manager comes in Europe. It's the one that the Juventini always want to win. Obviously they get their business done in Italy, and they have been doing that successfully, over the last decade. But the real challenge, and the one that they'll be aiming for, is to make an impact in Europe. So it'll be interesting to see. And obviously, while Barcelona, we're not particularly at the level that we have been previously. It'll still be a good measuring stick for Pirlo as Juventus manager. So moving on, next opponent and third seed then is Dynamo Kiev. Kiev obviously were a great side years ago, but in recent times they haven't been as good. They got into this competition this year, and they finished second in their league last season. They were 14 points behind Shakhtar Donetsk, who, to be honest, have kind of been the better side really in Ukraine over sort of the last while. This is Kiev's this is Kiev's first time in the group stages since the 2016-17 competition. So it's been a couple of years where they haven't made it to the groups. In the qualifiers last year, they lost 4-3 to Bruges, which meant they missed out and dropped into the Europa League. And they actually failed to come out of a group that included Copenhagen, Malmo and Lugano. Now, I do think they might improve based on what they done last year. They haven't done an awful lot of transfer business. I've actually, the only sort of deal that's done it was quite weird was they signed Ukrainian international Artem Kravets. They signed him from Kayserispor from Turkey. And he played one game, 23 minutes, and then he went to Konyaspor in Turkey. So I'm not sure how bad he could have been in 23 minutes, or whether it was just a deal that didn't suit everyone. But that obviously was quite an unusual deal. But one big change at the club was they've brought in a new manager who some people might remember him. His name is Mircea Lucescu. He took over the club in July. He's a Romanian. You probably remember him. He was the Shakhtar Donetsk manager, really curly hair. Done a really good job at Shakhtar. Won 8 league titles, 6 Ukrainian Cups, 7 Super Cups, and the UEFA Cup with Shakhtar. He's also won titles back in his native Romania. I think he won Serie B with Brescia. He's got trophies in Turkey, possibly Besiktas and Galatasaray, and he was at Zenit and won maybe a Russian Super Cup as well. So he's been around. He's had a lot of success. He knows Ukraine. His obviously going from Shakhtar, he didn't go directly to Dynamo Kiev. He's been in Russia, and I think he had an international job there for a while as well. But there was a bit of protest. They weren't particularly happy with the appointment, and it seemed that he was going to resign after a couple of days. But then they got that sorted, and he is now going to be staying. But he's made a good impact. He's made a good impact at the club. Obviously, it says about how they struggled in Europe last year, but so far he's got 3 wins and a draw in the league. They beat Shakhtar in the Ukraine Super Cup, and he qualified for the Champions League by beating AZ of the Netherlands 2-0 in a one-off game, and then Ghent 5-1 on aggregate. So he lost 4-3. The club lost 4-3 to a Belgian side last year in the qualifiers, and then comprehensively beat Ghent 5-1 this year. So there's already signs of improvement, despite not a lot of difference in the personnel. So it'll be interesting to see how much. But obviously with Barcelona and Juventus in the group, he's got a big task. But it'll be interesting to see obviously if he can bring back the good old days and what they were for Dynamo Kiev and was that probably the 90s now, must have been. So moving on then to the final group opponents, and there's actually a Dynamo Kiev link here. whenever the draw was made, Ferencvaros, now you obviously they haven't been out in the Champions League. I think it was in the 90s the last time they were in the Champions League, so it's a big thing for them. But their manager, looking at the draw, most people would probably be looking at it and thinking an opportunity to go against Juventus and Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi and Barcelona. But probably the most exciting thing for him is that he is an old Dynamo Kiev player. You probably remember him. He was one of the stars of the team, and whenever they had the success, it was Sergei Rebrov. He always played up front alongside Shevchenko. He was a good striker. He obviously had went to Spurs in England, didn't really do that well. But he was a great player whenever he was in Ukraine and Dynamo Kiev. He was part of that really good side that obviously some Barcelona fans will not have such fond memories of. But so he's going back to Kiev, which will obviously be interesting for him. He played there and he managed them. As a player, he won 9 Ukrainian league titles, 7 cups and a Super Cup. Then as a manager, he had 2 league titles, 2 cups and a Super Cup. The most famous player, sort of looking at their squad and their list of players, the one that people may sort of know about is Adam Bogdan, who's a former Bolton, Wigan, Liverpool goalkeeper. He doesn't seem to be the number one, but he's certainly somebody that the name will probably ring a bell. The danger man so far for the club is a Norwegian. His name is Tokmak Chol Nguyen. He has got 7 goals in 8 games in all competitions, and he can play anywhere across the front. Transfers, I have to be honest and say I don't know much about these guys. There's a couple of names that I recognise, but they've done a bit of business. They've spent about 3.5 million. Mirto Zune from Lokomotiv Zagreb, Alexander Zubkov of Shakhtar, I presume that's the Rebrov link. Roko Batarina from Dynamo Zagreb and Esa Leiduni from FC Voluntari, and they've also added a couple of frees with Bogdan being one, Amar Ramadan, Robert Mack and Adnan Kovacevic. The transfers out have been David Lanzafame forward and Kenny Otegbe, I think, is a defender. So current form, they're in good form. They've won so far this season in all competitions, 6 wins and 2 draws. I did watch them against Celtic, and they beat Celtic in Glasgow in one of their qualifiers. They also beat Swedish team, I think it was Djurgården in the year before that, or the round before that. Then Dynamo Zagreb. I think they actually lost the Dynamo Zagreb quite heavily last year in the qualifiers, so there's been quite a big turnaround there as well. I think it was, if I remember right, it was 4-0. I think they drew away in Zagreb and then lost 4-0 at home, so they won 2-1 to qualify for the playoff round, where they were drawn against Molde of Norway, and they got a 3-3 draw in Norway and drew 0-0 at home, which brought them obviously to the Champions League and the big stages. So that's the teams that Barcelona have to play. A little bit of background information, which hopefully you might find useful. Obviously Juventus, most people will know about them, but as I say, then I've done a bit of research on the others and found a few things which hopefully might help you in the build up. Obviously we're still a couple of weeks away from the Champions League. I think it's later, about 3 weeks time maybe. But that's the group, and I expect the fixtures will be out within the next hours, and may even be out by the time you've watched this. But that's all I have for now, and obviously I'll be back at some point in the near future with some more information on Barcelona, and obviously throughout the channel, across the channel, there'll be other content as well. But for now, thanks for listening, and hopefully you'll find this video useful.